Hi, I'm Pastor Mira, and this is Sermon in 3 Minutes. This past week, we continued our study of the Gospel of Light and Life, looking at the book of John. And this week, we looked at the theme, I am. It was 16 to 1800 years before Jesus came that actually we need to look back in the Old Testament book of Exodus to see where I am really got its roots. So it was Moses. He had an experience with a burning bush, and when he saw the bush on fire out in the desert, the bush spoke to him. And Moses said, "Who is that?" And God replied. Now, at the time, the context was there were lots of gods, and so Moses questioned again, saying, "God, who are you?" And God replied, "I am who I am." This started kind of the history of God saying, I am. I am all that ever is. I'm all that ever will be. I'm all of creation. I am. Now let's fast forward 1800 years, and we get to Jesus, John chapter 8. And Jesus is with the people after the festival of Sukkot, and Jesus says, "Very truly I tell you, before Abraham, I am." This is where Jesus starts to share his identity. He is God, God on earth. There are actually 7 I am statements in the book of John, where Jesus says, I am, but then he also adds other words, saying, I am the bread of life. I am the resurrection and the life. I am. Some of the very familiar ones you know. We looked this past week at the statement, I am the light of the world. That statement really happened when Jesus was in the temple. It was the festival of Sukkot, a Jewish festival where everybody came together. And in the temple court, there were 4 lampposts. On the top of the lampposts were bowls of oil, and they lit them on fire. And 75 feet up in the air, these lampposts had light that shined over all of Jerusalem. That's where Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Meaning light shines into every place because of the light and the experience that we see here in Jerusalem. Well, from that, we then talked a little bit about how light quells darkness, how Jesus came to quell sin, to take away the darkness in our world and in our lives. In the Synoptic Gospels, that's Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus not only says, I am the light of the world, but then he says to his disciples, you are the light of the world. So then we looked at it, what does it mean for us as a congregation, us as individuals, to be light to our community and to our friends and to the world? We shared an example from McKinney in Sierra Leone, how this congregation helped provide toilets to a church and a preschool that didn't have. We talked about someone in our congregation who reached out to a friend, and now her friend is an active part of our ministry here at CUMC. The challenge of this week is how can you be the light in this community, in whatever community you live? How can you live out Jesus' command to be the light of the world, to share Jesus everywhere you go? Thanks so much for listening. Hope to hear you and see you again next week.